Kick out the old, welcome the new. Make your New Year's resolutions now. Go!
Well, hello again, and welcome to episode 170 of There's Still Time, the AFTN podcast. I'm Michael McCall.
I'm Steve Pander.
I'm Jay Duke.
And I'm Zachary out of Meisenheimer.
And we're bringing you a roundtable discussion looking at the season just past for Vancouver Whitecaps. But don't switch off. It's not going to be all doom and gloom and depressing. Most of it will be.
How could it not be?
We'll try and make it as entertaining as possible for you.
So make it quick.
Yeah.
Like a Band-Aid.
Before we do too much...
Shot to the back of the head instead of five to the chest.
The year was shit. Move on. Next one.
Pretty much.
Next podcast.
I was going to say, can you sum up your feelings on the season? So I think that kind of does it.
I just did right there.
Like, looking back, what's your overriding thoughts of the season now that we're 6 to 8 weeks kind of after this season came to a conclusion?
I want to get in here before Zach because I know he's going to talk about how meaningful that we won some hardware and that's so important. And like any person who's a true fan of the Whitecaps, I love to see Portland and Seattle, especially their fans, cry and whine and go home sad. So the fact that we were able to win the Cascadia Cup was great. But I looking back now at this last season, I almost forget about the fact that we won the Cascadia Cup because everything else was so bad that even a Cascadia, like a winning,
and the thing is,
winning
Cascadia,
a trophy,
that wasn't the last game of the year. It should have left you with a good feeling.
Right?
But it doesn't.
I know. It was like I was almost happy that we eliminated Portland from the playoffs.
That was
in the last game.
Yeah.
And I know that's bad because I'm supposed to be one of the guys who's supporting this. You know, the Whitecaps, this culture between the Cascadia teams and you know but I almost didn't care because the rest of the season was so bad that it was like, yeah, I guess we won some other trophy, but man, it was that bad of a season start to finish that there's really hard to grab onto anything.
No, it's just to sum it up, it's just a forgettable season. It's like. Everybody seemed to be going in slow motion, and it just never seemed to want to end.
That's the perfect way I think to describe it is that it was like a car stuck in mud.
Yeah.
Like they were moving forward, but just couldn't.
Which a lot of people are spinning their wheels in this winter.
Right. Zach, you feeling?
Let me get comfortable. Okay, Zach.
Should we all leave and let you?
No, it was an extremely difficult season, and I think the biggest thing that stands out for me is how poor we were at home. I think when you have 6 wins, 5 losses and 6 draws at home, like that's just not good enough. And I think that's where you fail to make the playoffs. That's where you fail to do what you want to do in a season, and that's where things have to change. You look at our road record, there's only one team in our conference who had more away wins than us. You look at the league, there's only 3 teams who had more away wins than us.
That's really bizarre, too.
Yeah.
And it's hard to actually put your finger on why that happened.
If they were able to, like, just figure out the home games, like you said, and get that one extra goal here and there, they could have turned some draws into wins and some losses into draws. It was just that fine. I know we're saying forgettable season, a horrible season, but they were very close if they had had some things go their way to turning it around and getting some more points.
Starting off, I mean, I think it's good to start way back at the beginning. I don't necessarily blame Robinson for how the team started out, in that it was clear that coming off the heels of last year, we were found out to be so one-dimensional, and we were this fast, hit you hard up the wings on the counter, and he didn't want to be just that club again. He wanted to be able to possess the ball, to counterattack when it was on, but when it wasn't, he wanted to be able to possess the ball, play build-up, play, and he was clearly trying to change the team into that kind of mold. He played Pedro Morales, started him deeper, bringing in a guy like Bolaños, who's not a speed threat, but more of a creative player. Kudo, even, he's not a speed merchant. He, clearly their goal was to try and change the identity of how they play soccer. And there was going to be an early period where we were going to struggle. So starting off the season with two losses right out of the gate. I kind of expected that there might be some growing pains.
But there was some hope too, because if you look at the preseason, they won 5 of their 6 games. And the only loss was to Chicago, and that was a fluky loss they had there with things were going the wrong way. But yeah, you're right. 2 losses to start off, one at home to Montreal, and that was a lot to do with the right back spot, that game. And then the goal on the road to lose to Kansas City, that was acceptable, but they came back to Seattle, beat Houston. You're thinking maybe those first 2 games were a blip and they had something going on.
The game, I think, if you look back at the matches at home, I think there are those within the squad that would say, yeah, there are 3 or 4 games we look back on, and had we not have the errors we had in those games, we would have been in the playoffs, and maybe
at least given a competition, a push.
Or things could have been vastly different. Montreal is a prime example. Fraser Aird holding up his hand saying, the first goal I wasn't good enough. David Osted, I think it was the second goal.
Yeah.
It was the second goal was.
But the build-up again was from the right side, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, but that was a huge error. And I love David Osted. Yeah. Don't get me wrong, but I don't think that's. I think that's a game he would like to play over. And you had that over and over and over again.
It was clear that a lot of the players that made 2015 a positive year, at least the regular season portion, their failures to start the season really, really critically hampered the club throughout the rest of the season. Laba was a shell of himself. Waston was a disaster at the beginning of the year.
Discipline was a big issue.
Discipline,
first few months.
Yeah. So Morales, I know Michael pointed out his numbers actually weren't that terrible, but didn't exactly start the season wonderfully. Rivero, we were hoping he would catch on, and if he didn't catch on, he'd leave, which is exactly what happened.
Yeah.
That's the main reason why we had such a terrible start to the year.
I mean, if you look at the season, you look at it pre-Voyageurs Cup and post-Voyageurs Cup, and we will come to that whole thing in a sec, but to start it so slowly, just the way that they had played last year, confidence was high, but they did kind of struggle towards the end of last season. Then you come into this season, but a great pre-season, as you've said, and everyone was tipping them to do well. And I don't know whether you can look back now, and hindsight's always great, but was 2015 the blip and 2016 is the normal? So it was like 2015 an anomaly, and 2016's really what this Whitecaps team is.
I really think that this was... Robinson was trying to change the way that they played football, and everything fell apart. The players that he needed to keep playing the way that they were, like Laba and Waston, disintegrated. And the players who came in didn't fit in well right away. Bolaños struggled at the beginning to kind of get into things. Both of his right backs completely, fell apart at the beginning of the year. Even though I actually think that we could have kept on to Aird.
Yeah, I would have stuck with Aird.
Yeah, I think he would still be a good project.
Too quickly.
But they were clearly trying to change something, and it's like almost everything he did fell apart. And in the end, Robinson has to take the blame for that. He does. He has to be the one who says, yeah, I tried all this, it didn't work. But there were a lot of individual players who either didn't come in and do what they were advertised to do. Like I know Kudo had an injury pretty quick, but Kudo's never really filled out to being what we would hope he would be. Bolaños towards the end of the year got a lot better, but early on sure didn't. So it's tough to gain traction when you're doing that.
And if you look at the off-season moves that were made with the existing players, extended contracts for the whole defensive spine. Usted, Waston, Laba all got extensions. Teixeira got signed to a proper deal. When you saw those guys getting signed, you were like, great, this is fantastic. And you thought...
Some consistency.
Yeah, some consistency, some really good players. And I know from speaking to Robbo over the course of the season, it's been infuriating for him that you give these guys big contracts and then they just don't perform. Was it that they were maybe a bit too complacent because they've got an extended deal? Or was it just that they were found out or people knew how to play against them?
I'd find it hard to believe that many people all became complacent. I think this is a bigger issue than, 3 or 4 players resting on their laurels once they get big contracts.
But the problem is it was your best players that were doing that. So the players you really needed to elevate everybody else.
Because Laba, Waston, and to an extent Usted all stunk.
Yeah.
But have any of those 3 players in their history with us or history before that, in the case of Laba, where you've followed them, have they shown to you, indicated that they're just in it for a contract? Are they?
No.
Teixeira, it's a little easier to point a finger at him and say, look, he came to the club fat, lazy, out of shape, didn't really seem to want to work too hard. Had a great year last year, got a fat contract, and now he's resting.
That's
the other guys.
Does for you.
The other players have a track record of being positive contributors, working hard, good locker room guys. All of those guys have been. So I think it's too easy to blame them and not say that there is more going on.
Yeah. If you look at the stats, you're automatically drawn that the team was a defensive nightmare this year because they were shipping goals left, right and centre. They went from the best defensive record in all of MLS to the worst in the West and one of the worst in all of MLS.
Actually, second worst in the West because of how we did in that last game against Portland.
Okay. I didn't look after that. Then you point the fingers at the goal scoring as well, and it's like, the goals weren't there to rescue them from the poor defending. But I
think it's all defensive.
Yeah, the attacking actually wasn't that bad.
It wasn't.
I feel it was, but when you look at it, they were, I think, the 4th highest scorers in the West.
If you look at, I remember that one game against Toronto where it was Kakuta Mane and Hurtado just leading the attack, and it was really good. So I don't have an issue with the scoring. I think the defense just fell apart from this year, especially early on.
One comment I heard from Matthias Laba, obviously lots has been said about him and, change of life, becoming a father, all that kind of stuff. And I know I'm going to sound probably very biased in this comment, but one of the things I heard that he said early in the season was, I really miss having Gershon Kofi next to me in central midfield. And I think that, all the players we played there, none of them are, except for maybe you could say Jacobson, Andrew.
Closest like for sure.
Yeah. None of the guys we put there. Like Pedro ended up playing there a lot, and that's requiring Matthias to cover a lot more ground.
The problem with Matthias is, it seems to me anyway, I've always been a proponent of making him the lone holding midfielder.
Yeah, I agree with you there.
I think that might not be the greatest idea after last season, just because Gersh never went too far from where he, so Matthias he's an absolute bulldog, and he will chase every ball down and every player, and he makes life so difficult for the opponents. But because of that, he has a tendency to drift away from his spot in front of the back, your center backs, and that's where Gersh would generally be hanging out. So
Pedro
when you played exactly,
Pedro was a fit for that.
So you put Pedro in there, and suddenly, the last man back is kind of floating around the middle of the park, because Matthias is taken off somewhere. So I agree that was a big loss. That's part of that transition that I think that they were kind of moving towards, and it clearly didn't work out.
I think one other thing is that that hinders Matthias and people's perception is the DP tag that he still carries, and that's an unfortunate, to me, it's an unfortunate thing that it's like something those involved in the money making decisions at our club, they hide. Like, he should not be a DP, and so they keep him as a DP when really he should be bought down in a proper.
That's the thing, especially with the targeted allocation money and stuff like that.
It's made for him.
He is the perfect player that you could pay down to a non DP salary to open up a DP slot.
But they don't want to open up.
But they hide behind it.
Yeah, they don't.
So clearly, like I know this is a bit of tinfoil hat thing, but clearly the club has decided no, we don't want to go out and get another DP player where Matthias is fine. I suppose that to some degree you can use your target allocation money to go after a player like Teixeira or Bolaños and buy them down, because I know there was some rumor that Bolaños might have been brought in with some.
We'll never know.
It'll
always be rumors.
Well, Teixeira isn't. Teixeira's salary is what it is because of his the transfer fee is on his top of his salary. So Teixeira's not making the $350 or whatever it is.
Right, but there was apparently some of that had to be bought down to that amount so that he wasn't a DP because of the cost of the salary. This is all smoke and mirrors, and we'll never know the truth of it, which is really disappointing.
Hashtag transparency.
Yeah, but don't worry. Don Garber and in the State of the Union, he said they're concerned about transparency and they're working on it still. I think they just keep playing the same clip every year at MLS Cup of him saying we're working on transparency. And then what was it? A couple days later, they announced a whole bunch more targeted allocation money coming out to all the clubs. So great, like status quo from the Don.
It's so simple. Just have it just straight up. This is how much his fee is. This is how much it helps. You know what? It'll help the players too.
That's why they don't want to do it.
That's why they don't want to do it. But it'll help.
Because then the money goes to the players rather than.
No, it's not that. Just that. It's just people won't assign blame to certain players, not knowing that that money is not actually going all to them as part of the transfer fee. And so,
but here's the thing:
even Teixeira's being paid this much, he's not being paid that.
Even what you see on those, aside from what we talked about Teixeira, even what you see on that players' union release is not accurate.
No, it's not.
You've had owners, Merritt Paulson, publicly say the numbers on that thing are not what we're paying that guy. We are paying him more.
No, those
are
or less.
Those are
he came out and said we're paying that guy more than what the union
general representations of what the players get paid. They're not actually accurate by any means.
100%. So let's get to the big topic of what happened last year, and possibly the biggest turning point, and that was the final game in the Voyageurs Cup. Hugely disappointing. Zach has a story about how he was standing behind the bench and what he saw there. But Jay, first to you, like watching it from afar, was that probably one of the more devastating things that happened in your, not only following the Whitecaps, but following any team almost?
Yeah, I mean, and I guess that's part of what makes cup competitions and such an exciting thing for spectators. But when you're on the losing side of that, it was a gut punch like I've never felt before. And it was almost surreal at first. Like when it went in, I was like, hold on a second. Like, so did we just lose the Voyageurs Cup? And like you look up and there's no time and there's no, like, it was astounding. And it really does speak to what kind of season we had. But yeah, it was, that sure was, as a fan, that one was a real tough one to take.
Zach, your remembrances of the game?
It was awful. I was with Daniel Squizzato and Dominic Martin from the CSA, and we were there, down literally like behind the bench to be a part of the presentation for the Voyageurs Cup, depending on who won. And you could, like, the players were just like so excited. Our bench was like so excited, like you could just see the joy in their eyes, like you could just like feel it. And some of them were like whooping it up a little bit on the sideline and turning to the crowd and encouraging them to keep on getting behind them in the final few moments. And then like you could literally like see like their hearts like some of them, their hearts break the moment that the moment that our back, there was a lack of communication in our back line, and Will Johnson struck that ball and it went in, and it was it was devastating.
And that's what made it worse too. Like Will Johnson of all people.
You want to do what to Will Johnson?
No, I totally agree with you because it was mostly because of him. If it was somebody else, maybe we would have been able to.
It would have still been bad, but and you almost couldn't like. It's normally when the Whitecaps lose, if you ship a goal right before the end, even in a big game, like you're almost mad, like you're pissed off about what happened. I couldn't even be mad at the time. It was just so disappointing, and so yeah, and without a doubt, I mean, how going forward, how could you blame the players for having that moment? Because if we thought it was bad, can you imagine the players who were on the pitch?
Oh, and they didn't recover either. If we want to go past that.
No, but okay, but the specific play of the goal, though, is a very simple football play. And again, it's going to sound like I'm getting on David Osted here. And again, I greatly appreciate David Osted. But that play is the keeper's to call.
Yeah.
If the keeper doesn't call it, the defender's got to play it.
Yeah.
From what I understand, there was no call.
Yeah.
And so if you're going to talk about what happened on that play, that comes down to a lack of.
I wonder if he relaxed too much, thinking he was over it, didn't expect.
But it almost doesn't matter whose fault it was or what happened. We're kind of lucky it was David because he's earned a mistake here and there. He's been so good for our club for so long. It sucks that was the time that it had to happen. But it's almost hard to blame them for that taking such an emotional toll on them following that play, because it sure did look like after that point, you know, the heart was ripped out of that club for a good stretch of time, and they never did recover.
For the rest of the season.
They never recovered.
They only had 3 league wins for the rest of the year, and that game happened in end of June 29th. 3 wins in MLS. For the rest of the season. That's like 17 out of 17 games. You're not going to be able to make the playoffs doing that.
Yeah, Steve, you don't have to remind us. We were all there. Huh?
Yeah, I know. And the thing is, I think people didn't. It didn't hit people as hard because I just realized it too. Like I didn't really look at the schedule because I was going, "Oh God, another loss," but it didn't really hit because you had those CONCACAF wins. And they swept those wins, so that kind of that kind of lessened the blow where people didn't realize how bad they were.
I asked Robbo a question at one point at training about the poor run of form and no wins and whatever, and it confused him because he was thinking of the CONCACAF wins, and it's like, well, we've won some games. What are you talking about? And I wasn't counting those because I was just looking at MLS, so it was a very bizarre conversation. I mean, Zach mentioned like the players and how it must have been gotten to them. Christian Bolaños talked about it in a couple of podcasts ago when he said to him that was when the season changed. The confidence went of the team. And I agree, Usted's allowed an error here and there because he's saved so many points. But, I mean, like what Jay said as well, it's a gut punch. The only thing I can equate it to, and even that wasn't as bad, was there was a cup game, East Fife in the 90s. They were playing a Premier team. They were 2 divisions below them. They were winning 1-0, but they wasted so much time. And this was before you had boards telling you how much time. So we were in the 97th minute, and the game's still going on, and then Dundee United scored this equaliser because of just another defensive cock-up. And the stadium that had been loud as hell, like BC Place for this, just, you could have hit a pin drop. But you had United fans there celebrating, but BC Place went so quiet that night, and I've just never experienced anything like that.
And you know, like even normally when they ship a goal at the end, you hear fans going like, "Oh, this is crap, you idiots!" You hear people like angry about it.
Yeah,
that nobody was even angry. It was just like utter silence.
If you look at Tom's photos as well, like there's a series of photos, and it's like there's a couple of kids behind, and this isn't good for the radio, but they're kind of like. And it's like their mouth's just getting bigger and bigger, and it's like their hands
was
going
like
up in shock.
he took like 3-4 shots within a second, right, or something like that.
I being down on the field, when we were setting up, we knew where the post game stuff was going to happen, and like some of our banners were behind it, and so like as soon as I got over the shock, I was just like, I got to take down our banners. Can't be the background for this stuff. So I just went and started taking stuff down and like tearing down for the day. It was terrible.
It's one of those games that, when you lose a game like that, the season can go one of 2 ways. It can either be the biggest kick up the ass you're going to get because you're like, I don't want to feel like that ever again. I want to go on a big run. But for the Whitecaps, they just seem to sap everything out of them, at least in league form. And there was no coming back from it. You look at what happened after, and like you said, Steve, it's like they hardly won any MLS games. They did do well in CONCACAF. Winning the Cascadia Cup as well was great because, as you said, it ended Portland's season, and that's always great when you end a rival season. Is there any part of you sitting here today that feels, it wasn't that bad a season with a qualification to the quarterfinals of the Champions League and a Cascadian Cup? Whereas you could have had a playoff game where it was like one and done. So you might not have had the Cascadia Cup, you might not have had the quarterfinal, you might have made it into the playoffs in 5th or 6th spot and then lost your game.
Now, I for me, I probably would have at this point said it would have been fine, but now that Seattle won, which we haven't mentioned yet, but Seattle won the MLS Cup, that kind of takes all the goodwill away.
You shouldn't be talking about that.
I know. But but that's part of my confidence. It takes kind of... I wasn't too disappointed by the season, but them winning it, like Portland winning last year, that's kind of like just...
But hopefully it puts pressure on. That's the only good thing for me that can come
but
with this.
But if it puts too much pressure on, that could be a negative.
No,
too.
not on the players.
No,
the
no,
players
I'm talking about on the organization.
No,
if they spend like on really crappy players,
that's not gonna be allowed to happen. But like to me, it puts the right kind of pressure on.
I agree.
Like you have been talking from the very beginning. Oh, our atmosphere, our stadium's going to be as great as Seattle, and we came in with Portland, and we're doing this as good as them, and look I really hate when all of the people, when the people who speak from our front office, all they do is try and compare us to other people or talk about what other people are saying about us.
But now that the Seattle and Portland won, they don't want any comparisons now, right?
Exactly.
They won't be wanting it now.
Well, if you think about it, in the last 2 years, really, so you've had Portland won the MLS Cup last year. Seattle won the MLS Cup this year, with Toronto in the final having a good year, and Montreal getting to the final of the CONCACAF Champions League. Not only that they had a actually really good year this year, and what I think it was a very positive playoff run against in an epic 2-game series there with Toronto. It has not been a worse time to be Bob Lenarduzzi, because now the pressure is squarely on the shoulder of the club to say there is no more excuses, there's no more betting in period, there's no more. You guys have to go out now, and you must. And I'm not saying spend money. I actually, to some degree, I don't want to be Toronto. I don't want to be Seattle or LA. I like that they're trying to be savvy and smart about their purchases, and they're trying to do a development structure, but you have to be smart about it. And right now they're far from clever. Now's the time that it's time that they speak up, because
not speak up, then act
appropriately. I don't mean that with actual words. I mean, they have to go and put their money where their mouth is, and actually have a couple some positive things happen this year,
and get the players that will fit the team and be able to enhance the other players that are on the roster.
Yeah,
get the younger players up, get them up, and be just positive for everybody. So they just need to get the right players and not necessarily the highest paid.
Yeah, I agree. But in terms of the spending, some of the people who are calling for spending are calling for ridiculous amount of spending.
Yeah, no.
But the spending has to be
intelligent.
But it has to be. We have to be spending more wisely, but we do have to spend, I think, more than we're currently willing to spend.
Yeah.
But I'm not saying like crazy numbers.
No, and where I think I'm not, even if they don't want to spend it on salary, but things like the charter flights that the Whitecaps never seem to even take advantage of.
Don't get me started.
So they're cheaping out in certain areas when it comes to stuff that doesn't go on your salary that could seriously contribute to positive
scouting.
results.
They don't do enough scouting.
The travelling,
in my opinion,
killed Pedro. It's like, I know it's difficult for all guys, but when you've got a back problem, going on and off airplanes constantly,
what's that like?
And it's not easy. But I mean, like, that kind of stuff killed him. So I mean, some charter flights thrown in would really, really have helped him.
Because they could have taken charters to every CONCACAF game, every Voyageurs Cup game if they wanted, and I think it's 3 or 4 is the maximum for league games. Yeah, is it 5 now?
I've heard 5.
Well, it used to be 3. I heard it moved to 4.
That could have gotten the Florida trips, a couple of Eastern trips.
The Whitecaps logged the most miles of any club in the MLS. Yep. You have to assume that and I know bloody expensive. They're probably about what 20 or 30 grand up.
But you know what they do? They do the exact opposite thing. They some of the biggest trips that they've had, where it's kind of hard not to imagine that charter flights maybe weren't requested. Mm-hmm. We've gotten results in some of those games, so they say, "Oh, we didn't need to spend the money. We still got the result in that game."
Yeah.
You know, like it's so frustrating and and mind-boggling.
Well, talking of money brings me on to my next point. Money is becoming more and more of an important factor, really, in MLS. They talk about parity, but when you look at the final four, if you want to look at it that way, the two conference finalists, Toronto, massive spending. Seattle, big spending as well.
Montreal brought in a big player, Drogba.
They spent some money, and Colorado kind of weren't.
But they brought in Tim Howard
and Jones.
Yeah.
And Jones and that other guy, that Gashi, that's it.
But when you have an MLS Cup and it's Seattle against Toronto, it does so much to debunk the front office at the Whitecaps saying, look, we're holding up Dallas and Colorado and teams like that as our model for going forward. Because they didn't get very far. Dallas won the Supporters' Shield, but is it becoming more and more that you're going to have to spend money in this league to get this success?
If you're not going to spend huge amounts of money, you have to spend the right money.
Well, that's just it. It's not about spending $5, $6, $7 million on a player for salary or getting $10 million transfer fees or anything. Listen, last year Dallas was the youngest team in the league, and they won the Supporters' Shield, which is harder to do than winning the MLS Cup. Like, you're a better team if you win the Supporters' Shield than you are if you win the MLS Cup. Look at Seattle. They were the bottom of the league in the beginning of June or something. They were either tied for last or last in the league.
Siggy got fired.
Right. So, the Dallas has shown that they have there is a way to be consistently good and consistently challenge for the top of the league and challenge in the playoffs without breaking the bank. They've brought in smart players like Mauro Diaz, despite his brittle knees.
Yeah.
He's one of the most brilliant number 10s in the league. They've brought through their academy, and they've brought into their academy quality players. They've given them opportunity. They've surrounded them with good players to support that youth movement there, and they've been rewarded for it. And they are a model of what of a quality MLS side on the pitch.
And they haven't also blocked pathways.
Exactly.
Whether it's Castillo or they've even sold players out of their academy.
Right. And I think I think Bobby would be right to point to them and say, look, there's a way for us to do this. However, you actually have to then go out and do it. Yeah. And that's where the Whitecaps have kind of struck out. You'll get a few years where I will back them up 100% and say, take some time for your academy to really produce some quality players that are MLS ready and put them in a position. Well, we're about at that time now where you can't use an excuse of, we just joined the MLS, and I know that the academy went years before that. They could say that there was a transition period, but we're now 5 full years in.
Not for the academy.
Six now, for the MLS. They need to put up or shut up with this development program, whether that be selling players on or bringing them in and actually giving them and saying, this is you're going to get 2,000 minutes this year. So, get ready for it. And I hope that'll happen this year with a guy like Alfonso, who technically qualifies as an academy player, although we sort of, scooped him last year. As well as
we didn't produce him.
No, he wasn't produced by the Whitecaps.
You think he's at what age he still has time to produce? You have time.
Well, that's the thing, is that when they brought him in to produce him, and he every step he came, he dominated at every place,
exceeded expectations.
And towards the end of the season, he was the most productive member of our team. He was the best player on the pitch. So. If he doesn't get 2,000 minutes this year, I would be disappointed.
Well, the thing is, he's He just, I agree. I understand you're saying 2,000 minutes. I don't think he needs to get exactly 2,000 minutes, but he does need to get a significant minutes, whether it's as a sub coming off in CONCACAF, in Voyageurs Cup. They need to play, and they need to play him in the right positions. That's one thing I want to say. I want to use an example of Marco Bustos, who is a number 10 by
100%.
trade.
Yeah.
But whenever he gets into the lineup, they seem to always want to put him on the wing. Whether
They want
they
to
don't
protect him by putting him out wide.
But by protecting him, they actually make him look a lot worse because he's not used to playing out there.
But I did ask Marco that a couple of podcasts ago, and he said that he has to. I think it was in a podcast. It might have been for a written piece, but he said that he knows that he has to basically learn every midfield position. If he wants to get on in the game, he's not always going to play that number 10 role. There's only one number 10.
Yeah, I understand that, but the protection, like you were saying, protecting him is not working. It's actually making him look worse. Maybe he needs more time practicing on that wing side. Because when he plays the WFC2, he's in the middle.
Bustos specifically, he needs playing time.
Yeah,
he needs playing time at maybe various midfield positions, but especially behind a striker or two. Joe, in terms of, you're talking about, some of the things you guys are talking about here comes down to identity. I think it was really concerning for me when I guess it was Mark Weber did the article with 26% owner there, Jeff Mallett, and Jeff Mallett was like, people don't know who we are. People don't. It was like, you had this guy saying this, like, how can you say that players coming into the club don't know who they, like, that's a who's responsible for that?
Yeah. Where's
the falling down? Do you even know who you really are?
Well,
because you keep on comparing yourself to we like, if you count all the teams our club, those entrusted to be stewards of our club have compared us to. It's got to be like half a dozen to a dozen clubs around the world that they've compared us to in the past, as opposed to saying this is just who we are. And in terms of the residency, they're like, where's the accountability for that? Like how many years and how much money has been spent, and what has it produced? And I don't say that to be harsh towards those players that come out of there, because I love those players. Like, they feel like, like, we've seen them grow up as people and as players, and we're passionate about seeing them develop and have opportunities and all that kind of stuff. So, but where's the accountability for what that has produced for the first team? Like, there's so many things that are poorly communicated, that aren't like the vision of the vision of our club, to me, is too tied up around not losing money and not around footballing matters.
Well, and that's, I think, a bit of an issue, that if you are always winning, it almost doesn't matter. You can say, well, who cares what our image, our vision is? We're champions all the time. That's what our vision is.
Yeah, like, look at Man United when the Glazers took over. Some fans left FC United, but the rest stuck because they were winning.
Right.
So they could get away with stuff.
So, and I think that's important now when, we've had a down year. Robinson and I think the whole club it has enough leeway. They have been getting better over the last couple of years on the pitch. When they go away, you remember the Rennie years, especially even the year they got into the playoffs. It was like, when they went on the road, man, it was all hands on deck, just try and eke out a 0-0, and it was hoping for a result.
The back door way in.
Right. Yeah. Even last year, we had a terrible season, and at any point of any game did we go out in a real negative manner. Robinson has changed the culture of the club, and in how we're perceived around footballing circles in the league, and I think he has enough leeway to have the rest of this season. But if things don't go well, there's going to be a price to pay, and it will likely be Robinson. Yeah. It may be other people as well, but that's the main question that you get back to, Zach, is, what is the vision of this club? What is the identity of this club? Because they've said that they want to be, they want to invest, and they've invested amazingly, and they've set up this network of all these different academy centers across all of Canada. Even if it's just like a sponsorship deal or something like that, the fact is that they're putting their tentacles out into all these different places.
They're casting the net wide.
Right.
But all the academies follow a set plan, so everyone's on the same playbook.
And Zach, you can't just brush away the fact that they've spent millions and millions and millions of dollars into the academy. What I do agree with is that then that has to translate into something because it's not translating into something.
Yeah.
If you're,
but who's accountable for the lack of results?
I agree.
But
I think,
you have to say, are the players good enough?
Well, that's
the ultimate thing. It's like
the
you look
debate.
at some of the guys that have been signed to homegrown and moved on. Bryce Alderson, what's he doing now? Philip Davis, what's he doing?
Okay, yes, I don't disagree. But Michael, isn't part of that? They dominated at age levels. So isn't the job, shouldn't our as a club, shouldn't our job be to make sure that they can take that into being a professional?
You can't always do that because some people peak at 18.
You can't always do that, but we virtually have never done that.
But Michael, how many years have FC Dallas been? We have been nose to nose with them at the U16 and U18 levels for 5 years now, and they continue to bring up players who either contribute a little bit or a lot, or they sell them on, or they move them. They sold
Red Bulls as well.
The Red Bulls have done the same thing. Yet the Whitecaps have failed to do that once. The closest we've gotten now is with Sam Adekubi. And perhaps he's making a move to Brighton and Hove, is it?
I mean...
Well, that one is basically the thing that irks me about the Sam Adekubi thing is I like Jordan Harvey. I think he's a fantastic fullback for MLS. But if they wanted Sam to be in that position, they should have moved Jordan on.
Agreed.
And they should have made Sam sink or swim with him.
Yeah, because they gave Jordan the chance to make the position his own.
Yeah.
And he took it.
Yeah.
Full credit to him.
He took it. But there was one point where Sam looked like he was getting into that rhythm of going in.
He got an injury.
He got an injury, and then Jordy came in. And once Jordan's playing well, you can't stick Sam. But if you had a different fullback, maybe a lesser fullback, maybe easier to bring Sam back in.
And is that not one of the areas we need to work at?
Yeah.
When you're a young player, how do you mentally get over an injury? How do you mentally get over losing your position and still fighting for it and not expecting it's going to be there when you're back?
I know from speaking to certain people within the organisation, and I won't say who, there is a feeling that a number of the younger players in past years feel that they're due.
Everything should have been
handed. This sense of entitlement thing. Yeah, okay, but that's not. I don't think that's been the case of all generations that have come out of the residency.
But the new ones don't feel like that. The difference between the attitudes are chalk and cheese.
Yeah, but I don't think you can. I personally don't think you can say that about all the older generations of the residency either.
No,
maybe
not
some
all.
individual players,
Yes,
perhaps,
some,
but not on the whole. I wouldn't say.
Well,
that
I think the thing is the majority of players that we expect to be those players that make it to MLS have that attitude. That's the problem. The players that don't have the attitude are the ones that aren't. We're not expecting anything from.
But then you so look at the residency. We got rid of Thomas Neindorf over some things that were not to do with developing players. And a change that they made that they wouldn't even really publicly acknowledge. They got rid of Thomas Gruschelten when I think he was probably encouraging them to do things probably a little bit like Richard. Did I say
Thomas?
Okay, Thomas Neindorf and Richard Gruschelten, two like quality, like standout people who have been known for developing players. They got rid of them. Especially Richard, I don't think for good reasons.
Richard, I can't speak to exactly specifically.
Let's not go over that.
Yeah.
Moving forward, especially with the
young
young
guys. As long as we don't bring up
guys,
Alain Rochette, that's fine.
we've lost Alan Koch. He's away to FC Cincinnati. How big an impact do you think that is going to have? We don't know who the replacement is yet. I'm hoping it might be Rich Fagan because he's done well with the 18s and I feel he deserves his chance. But they may feel that that's too big a step for him right now. But what kind of impact do you see that having on the WFC2 side for producing these guys for next year?
It's going to be all depending on who they bring in.
100%.
It's hard to judge right now. Like if they like I know you said bring Rich Fagan up. What if they bring Gordon Forrest down and put him in spot?
Yeah, I thought about
and
that.
Then maybe he wants some head coaching experience.
Gordon is.
This is just speculation.
Gordon's been acting as the link,
yeah,
right?
link,
because he was the residency guy, did a good job, got promoted. He's the one guy we did keep, which is kind of nice to see for a change. So I don't know how those all relationships work and whatever.
Well, it's because he's Scottish.
Yeah, there you go. But I don't know if that's a good thing to lose him as that link to the first team. You know what I mean?
No, he enjoys that role as well.
The big question is going to be what type of coach you put in there. In that, if you bring in your ex U18 coach, he's probably going to be a guy with an eye to development. And his interest will be bringing these kids through. I don't care if we don't, finish first in our division. We're going to try and develop these players and build with the club. Whereas if you brought in an outside coach, and I know that Alan Koch fought with this back, while he's seen as a development type of coach, I think if you had asked him, he wanted to win as well. Like he was very much so the club is going to have an interesting decision here, and I think that will gauge how the club wants the USL team, what direction they're going to go in. Whether it's going to be with an eye for developing players for the future for the first team, or if it's going to be, no, this is going to be our farm team where our guys go down to get their injuries rehabbed, and when Eric Hurtado doesn't play, he's going to come down and stretch his legs in our next USL game. And those are two very different USL sides.
I don't think there's been any names mentioned either so far, other than the Rich Fagan you're talking about. Like Nick Dasovich might be an option.
Well, I'm pretty
too.
sure Pete Sharrow put his name out.
Yeah, there'll be plenty of names out there like that.
He'll put a Dasso name?
Yeah.
Maybe Mark Watson, if he...
What would be wrong with Dasso or Watson?
No, nothing, but it's like the old boys networks, sometimes it feels like. Whereas you maybe need some new blood with new ideas. The way to look at it is if you put in an ambitious coach, he's going to want to win and get on. If you do promote an under-18 coach, then as Jay says, he's focused on development, and you've got to work in an environment where Robo's basically going to tell you what to do.
Yeah.
He's going to say to you, I want these players played, you have to play them for this long, and you have to play like this.
You gotta give them extended period to show that, forget the wins and losses then. Forget the amount of people coming to buy tickets and everything. You're not concerned anything about that. You just want to see the development. I'll give them a 5-year window.
As soon as you start charging money,
I know.
Things change.
Oh, I know that. But you can't be concerned. The organization can't be concerned about money. And if anybody wants to come, they can come. That's great. That's a bonus. But we're here to develop.
That's basically how it's working just now.
Yeah, so we're here to develop. If we win the win games, great. If we lose games, great. We want to see that 5-year window of those players coming in, like a Cade and Chung, and seeing where they are by their 22.
Okay, so looking at the Whitecaps roster as it stands when we're recording this, which is actually being recorded on Sunday, December 18th. 26 signed Whitecaps players, including Sam, who's away on loan. So technically 25 on the roster. If Robo wants to bring in 2 designated players, another second striker, if he wants to bring in any other backups, if he wants to promote... Yeah, another right back. If he wants to promote Spencer Ritchie, Kyle Gregg, those kind of players. Obviously, some players need to move on. The 25 guys that we've got just now are not going to be on the roster come first kick. Who would you move on? Who would you trade? And what would you want in return?
Well, I think we've already... we talked about, Giles Barnes is going to be the first guy gone, I would think.
And I think he's either...
You'd have to buy his salary down hugely, or he has to be a DP.
Or he goes to Europe, and... you mean if he stays?
Yeah,
if he stays, okay. Well, another team might want to do the same thing. If he goes to Europe, then that's going to be all transfer money, basically, coming back. You're not going to get anything else but that. I don't think they have draft picks in Europe.
Are we going to get a transfer fee from... Or is it Bolton?
Blackburn.
Blackburn?
Yeah.
I don't...
Well, you're going to get something. You're not going to get a huge amount.
Oh no, they pay money.
Everybody pays money.
Even if it's $150,000 or something like that,
they'll
is nothing
something
to them.
Yeah. I'd dangle him in front of China or something. Yeah. They seem to be paying crazy money with what Oscar's getting.
I think that's what Carl was talking about Robbie Keane.
I think he was. Yeah, he must have had a lucrative deal to go to China.
Or he's going with Ian Hume.
Yeah, he's welcome to Vancouver if he wants to go to China.
Another guy, especially when he said Kyle Gregg, although he's thinking bringing him in, they signed Hurtado to a 2-year contract. That doesn't mean they can't trade him. No. They basically that signing could be a way to give another team to show that this guy is signed for this X amount of money.
He's valuable.
He's valuable now because you're getting a fixed income.
Same with Timmy Parker. Because they gave him a better deal.
And it would break my heart because I've already said how much I love Tim Parker.
I thought you could say Hurtado.
I really think that Parker could be the odd man out, and
I don't
could
see
be
Parker
moved.
moving now. I don't see Parker moving because of the Edgar situation and the question marks about Dean.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Right away, I don't see that.
That's good points.
Especially if the car accident, the knee problem is lengthy. If it's just a month long and he just has some training setbacks, I think, I don't think Tim Parker's going to get a lot of playing time, and I could see him being traded because I think his value within the league is extremely high.
Yeah, and a US internationalist now as well.
That's it.
So,
That's just
I mean,
it. Yeah.
whether he's worth that right now or not, I don't know, but that carries weight with US teams.
Speaking of strikers, going back to them, how about Kudo? You've been talking about Barnes. How about Kudo? Kudo, maybe he decides to just they mutually end their contract or something. I don't think they're going to get anything for him at all.
Not within the league.
No.
He's on way too high a ticket.
And I don't think anybody from Japan is going to be paying transfer fee for him, especially with the lack of season he had.
You could just say he's not settled, family issues.
And you mutually break a
homesick.
contract that nobody owes anybody anything, so maybe they do that.
The other possibility, and I've mentioned this on previous podcasts, I think, and where I think that where they erred with Camilo is the second that he had such a subsequent fantastic seasons, you walk up to him with a blank check and say, "Hey man, we're ripping up your contract. We're doubling your salary again. What do you want? What do you want?" The same thing should be done in reverse, and they should be able to walk up to Kudo and say, we'd love to keep you around, but you're on a real big ticket. We need to bring in another striker. We want to play him with you. We still want to give you lots of, but can you take a $75,000 pay cut and bring it down to a little bit more?
But Kudo has every reason to say no, and if I was a player, I would say no too.
They could use the amnesty deal and cut his contract completely, and he could be gone. He'd be paid for it, but he would be off the books and he'd be looking for work again.
Or you could just say to him, "Hey, look, we're going to trade you to Philadelphia or something. You've got no say in it."
Right.
Because that's how it works.
Right.
And he's like, "I don't want to go to Philadelphia."
Yeah.
So it's like, well, just let's mutually terminate your deal.
I actually do think that Kudo was going to improve this year, and I think he's the perfect type of player to play beside a
bigger striker.
Actually, ironically, I think Espindola would have worked well with him.
Yeah.
Before Espindola left,
he was a great signing.
He
did no wrong. I can't find fault with him.
I think four other players. You talk about how we're going to make room on the roster. Three of the residency grads. Ben McKendry was loaned last year to WFC2.
Yeah.
Does that happen to him again?
I think he's ready to take the next step. I think he could be ready to come in and play full regularly.
Robbo really rates him.
Yeah.
He's also injured.
Is that just from previous USL experience? Because
I think sometimes players just have to be put in that position. I think he has the tools to do it. It's just a matter of him putting it together.
The thing that he has going for him is there's not exactly anyone above him on the Whitecaps club right now, aside from Lava. Jacobson, but is Jacobson the answer? I don't think he is either.
I think McKendry could be better natural fit than Tiber.
Absolutely,
point.
Yeah.
So and then you have Keans Froze, who was sort of like he went on trial or whatever in last year. He's another option for a player to be moved. And then Marco Bustos, is he blown out or again could be to WFC too, but
you got Tiber too. They picked up his option, but that doesn't mean the trade is not all personal.
I think based on that call, I think that
Mm.
he mentioned a lot of players there. I wouldn't say.
Yeah, to me, like Bustos isn't going anywhere unless he leaves the club on a sale because he's not playing. There's no point loaning him to WFC2 because then he could be loaned somewhere else.
He could be loaned somewhere else, though, to get playing time.
He's aiming to be a game day 18 player. That's his goal.
Yeah.
This off season, he told me he's going to work really hard, and that's what he wants to do is become that. Ben McKendry is a tough one because he's only 23, but that's getting on a bit without having 2 seasons now, no MLS starts.
But
Injuries played a big part of that.
But I think there's a chance for him, depending on how preseason goes, that he could be in the mix, not for a starting spot, but to get into the 18 or get it close to the 18.
So the other person who is in that same position as Ben McKendry, who we haven't talked about yet, would be is he technically currently on loan? Davey Flores.
Oh, I think he's done. I think
No, he's on loan, I think, officially.
Yeah, but
I
don't think he's coming back.
I believe one of the hiccups was that one of his loan was toward till the end of December.
Right.
So they can't terminate a player or who is technically still on your books because he's on loan to somewhere else.
So January.
So once the loan matures and he comes back into the possession of the Whitecaps, they can then terminate his contract or
Do you think they're going to terminate a contract? Did we pay money for him?
No, not much.
I think we signed him, and the reason they wanted to sign him is they thought he had a good resale value.
Yeah.
So they could keep him out.
I don't remember being a transfer involved. So
No, I don't think there was a
But
transfer.
they think he's going to
Basic
develop
contract was
into a
over.
top player, and they'll make money out of it. You've also got a couple of players like Teixeira. If he doesn't start performing, they could get rid of him. They could trade him. Kikuta Mane, if he has a great start to the season, come the summer, he's got his US citizenship now. There's nothing keeping him here.
Chelsea, Man United, Arsenal, they're all kind of looking at him right
Yeah,
now.
I'm probably thinking Blackpool, AFC Wimbledon. No, he would do
Isn't
well.
isn't he starting for Liverpool this season?
See, every time I hear that name, I just think, like, what must it be like for Kikuta hearing that? And you just think, that could be me, that they're going, Mane!
I could actually even see. Even within the league, I think Kikuta has a huge value.
But here's the problem: you can't. You can't.
I would never trade him within the league. It's either
you
Europe
talk-
or bust.
I wouldn't.
In reflecting on our season, this is
Unless Alphonso Davies really picks it up.
Well, something we'll talk in more depth in maybe another podcast. That is also one of the huge moments of our season. Losing Kikuta.
Yeah.
Because losing Kikuta meant we lost our biggest pace threat. Yeah. Our most likely person to get behind defenses.
And our best dribbler of the ball and one of our most consistent.
If he comes
and
back...
So you lost him, and that's why Eric Hurtado played as much as he did, because we needed someone with some kind of pace to be a threat. In my opinion, that's why.
And you know what? He could be, if he comes back healthy, he could be the biggest accusation of next year.
The trading him, it would be ballsy. Because
Very
the
ballsy.
uproar would be massive.
You can't trade him
But-
anymore.
Yes and
Depends what
no,
you get
because
back.
I think there's been a lot, and maybe this is just surrounding the hardcore supporters, but there's been a lot of people who've been very critical of Kikuta in recent years.
I have been at times.
There have been times, but you can still see the potential in him, and
it's
why I wouldn't trade
frustrating
him.
because you know what he can do. I actually read, it might have been on the Southsiders forum, I can't remember now, that or Reddit, someone was saying about, they said Kikuta Mane can't finish at all, and it's like, well, that's slightly over the top.
I think he was thinking Darren Maddox.
He is struggling sometimes one-on-one. He does his little thing, and if the defender reads it, he's got nothing else. And he's spoken to me before that he knows he needs to be more than a one-trick pony, but he just doesn't seem to be doing it. And then he struggled last year, or the season just passed. Then he got dropped with the whole weird thing that happened in LA, whatever that was. Then he came back and then got injured the very next game. But he was so up for it that game. Maybe too up for it, which is why he injured himself.
Well, the thing is, as long as he comes back from, because the last two off seasons he's either coming off an injury or from the previous season,
which is
or
why
he got
I would
injured in
sell
the
him.
preseason.
If he's healthy in the summer, sell him, because he, like Dean, you've worried about his injuries. McKendry, you're worried about his injuries. Mane, I'm worried about his injuries. It's get what you can.
But Mane, there was concern from the preseason he wasn't fit. He
was brought back too early.
Yeah, he was brought, and he felt like he was not in the best condition to be giving 100%. He still went out and did a job, but I don't think, if you asked him, and that's he's no doctor, but I don't think he felt his best. Even in the performances he had at the beginning of the season last year, I think if he is truly fit, has a full preseason, gets in match day shape and is ready to go, I think
he's now going to be going to the US squad in January, which is a bit of a worry for me.
Yes. Have we had any players who got injured with the US squad before?
Omar
think of
Salgado.
Oh yeah.
Christian Dean.
Yeah. Chidamere. Oh yeah. So that is a worry.
Thank you, America.
You've also got the Canadian squad is having a thing in January as well. Is it Bermuda?
A campfire or something.
Yeah, and
Kumbaya.
I don't like January camps right at the start of pre-season training. It upsets everything, especially because we're going over to the UK. So these guys may be missing out. It's upsetting me because I won't get to talk to them when I'm over there. But yeah, I don't know. It just doesn't seem right to me.
So those are some players.
So
who
those
could be
players
making
could
room.
move on.
No,
So that,
okay,
that
so
would make room.
let's talk about positions that we see filling in. For me, I see 4 spots that they need to fill. They need to bring in 2 strikers, the number 1 and 2, if they decide to move on Barnes and Kudo. And then I see the number 10 is obvious, and then the backup right back.
Yeah.
So I see 4 players that
probably not really
the minimum
any-
they need to bring in, other than the Richies and the Gregs and stuff like that,
Or,
fill the bottom.
you know, we didn't talk about this before, but Cole Seiler could just be the backup right back.
Yeah.
God, I'd still bring in a right back.
Yeah.
I still want
He's
to bring
not-
in a right back. I'm tired
he's
of
not overly
using, let's
comfortable
get a center back who's athletic. Let's put him at right back. No, he's an athletic center back. Let's use him as center back.
I also think maybe even one of the most important things for the Whitecaps to do this year is to get and if it was me, I would probably spend DP money on a midfielder box to box to go beside Matthias Laba. Or in my dreams where we play a 5-3-2 and you have Laba as a sole holding midfielder and more of a Tiba Hutchinson type. And I don't think that that's the right. If I'm Leonarduzzi, I'm on the phone with him right now because personally, the situation in Turkey is deteriorating greatly. Maybe now he's about to. He has 1 contract left and he's going to retire, and he's still playing probably the best football of his career.
Give me some Atiba.
Bring
I don't know
Atiba
how much he
home.
likes the turf though.
Yeah, that's the thing
Which
at that age.
I know, and I don't normally like bringing in guys that are that age, but he is such a quality, one of the best, if not the best player Canada has ever produced.
No.
Playing at the top of his career right now,
Yeah.
and would be the perfect player to sit beside a guy like Laba. He can go forward. He's smart defensively. He's physical.
And the thing is, I just want to mention, I have no problem with Laba being the sole holding midfielder. They just need to pitch, put a stake in the ground.
Yeah, you
tie
can go
get a chain
20
to it,
yards each
20
direction.
yards, and just let him stay in that area.
Yeah.
Laba.
Yeah.
Because sometimes he just starts roaming, and he's so. And
Well, you
so
saw-
many. So I know we're looking to the future, but so many of last year's goals were in that area where Laba should have been in, and he could have broken up something.
Well, you look at what was it? Was it the year? I don't know if it was the league game, or was the year we lost to Montreal in goal difference or away goals. We just equalized or something. Pedro had been dropped back to play next to Matthias, and it was late in the game. And there was, I don't know if it was a throw in on the side or Matthias got sucked to the side, or was it counterattack?
Yeah.
Sucked to the side, and there was this ginormous hole right in the middle.
Yeah.
Where Pedro should have been, or Gersh at that time normally would have been, or whatever, and they just played the ball into that hole in a 1-2
and that's the
scored
problem.
the winner, or
and that's the problem.
equalizer, or whatever it was.
However, I think he's been trained to having a partner.
Yeah.
And his best ability is his ability to track down danger.
Yeah.
So he tracks down the danger man, the danger player, the ball as it's squirting loose, and at risk of opening up a gap behind him that he, I think, has been used to having someone to fill in beside him, whether it be Gershon or Russell Tybert or
I think
whatever.
Jacobson might be the guy maybe to stick with him if they're going to play.
He
too
could
much,
be.
yeah.
I just would hope that we could do better. I think
You want
that's the
something
one
more
spot.
dynamic.
That's the one spot where we really missed this year. And I think one of the reasons why we didn't do as well is because we really had an inept midfield for most of the season.
Yeah, personally,
I have a number of friends who feel the same way.
Personally, me and Michael have discussed it, whether it was on the podcast or off the podcast. I personally I wouldn't mind getting rid of Laba completely and bringing in somebody else different. Somebody that can be the dynamic box to box or holding midfielder. Somebody that can be a Pedro Morales and a Laba together.
Next year's a big year for Laba, I think.
Yeah.
Because if he has another poor season, then he's maybe not what we thought he was. At one point we're talking about, he's going to end up playing in Europe or whatever. Not in last season's form.
No.
And which player that we've talked about playing in Europe is?
And even at his best,
Nigel Reo-Coker was giving everybody tickets to Europe.
and even at his best, Laba is limited in enough that I don't know if any of the big leagues necessarily will. Maybe a Switzerland or a
Well,
Denmark
Düsseldorf
or-
was interesting.
Yeah, if you believe all that. Just before we wrap up here, I want to just go back to something which Jay mentioned a few minutes ago. Robbo and his management team obviously got contract extensions before the end of the season, another 4 years. taking them up to 2020. A lot of people saw that as quite strange because of the season the Whitecaps had. It was reward, though, for what had gone before. Built into that, though, you want to keep hold of a guy in case he does do well and then somebody tries to sign him and take him, you're going to get money for him. But then you look at Seattle. If you hear heavy panting, it's not just that
Sorry, I'm just so excited talking about this.
Steve and Zach's been doing some exercise. Yeah, we've got to put.
Everybody knows that's fake. That's a lie, obviously.
Going back to, look at Seattle. They got rid of Schmidt, who at one point you thought would maybe have been untouchable, although folk were always mumbling a little bit about him. But if the Whitecaps have another bad start to the season, there is going to be an element that say, look, make the change, get rid of Robbo, bring in some new blood, you'll do what Seattle did last year. How do you think he gets the whole season?
I do think he'll get the whole season. It all depending on, like you said, they got the extension. How many of those are options?
Yeah, it's probably 2 and 2. Like
2 and 2.
Yeah.
So I know the Vancouver, like we all said, that they don't want to spend money. They definitely don't want to spend money on a coach that's sitting somewhere else, and they got to hire another coach. So I definitely see him getting a full season. And plus, Tommy Someone's not looking to get into head coaching, so we're okay there. But I definitely see that. But it all depends, like I said, the options. Like if you say it's 2 and 2, or is it 1, 1, 1, 1, or something like that. That all depends on how the contract itself is structured.
I agree. He's going to get the whole year. I think unless something real catastrophic happens, and so he should. And I've said this before. He changed the culture around the club. Now the players are treated in a way that's acceptable in society, unlike previous iterations of how our club treated the players. We're a competent team in the league and seen as such around the league, whereas we were a laughingstock for a couple of years, both on results and just in performance. Literally, the culture around the club has been improved since he's been here. So he deserves a chance. He had a bad year. He is still learning, and he has made a lot of mistakes over the last year. And I think he will probably continue to make some mistakes. But as long as he can move on from those and show that he can learn to adapt a bit tactically and to change maybe some personality traits around how he acts to the officials. If he can identify those things and improve, then he's going to be a fantastic coach for a lot more years.
Yeah, I think he's going to get the whole season. I would be shocked. I think Steve makes a good point of that they're not going to want to buy him out, especially unless something like you said is catastrophic, Jay. So I'd expect to see him here for all of next year.
The only thing I'll say to that is that one of the reasons that it concerns me is that if he is shipped out, who will be brought in to replace him? And I don't just mean that from what coaches are available. I mean,
it won't be any coaches. It'll be just whoever the assistant is at that time.
Well, do we trust the front office to making a correct decision for the next head coach? And right now, I trust Robinson a whole heck of a lot more than I trust the front office to get those types of decisions correct.
Yeah, I agree. I think he'll get the whole season at least. If it goes horrible, then obviously there'll be talk after that. If it starts off really bad, though, the knives will be out from some section of the support and some of the media, and that could turn the pressure up a little bit. But we've got a lot to look forward to for the season to come. Can't be any worse than 2016. Actually, 2017 as a whole year can't be much worse than 2016, so the Whitecaps season fit in pretty nicely with that. There'll be new signings coming. We're going to have some podcasts come in thick and fast. Our first radio show on CITR radio will be coming up pretty soon as well, so listen out for that. So just before we go, let everyone know where they can find you online. So Steve.
You can find me on Twitter at WhitecapsBeat.
And I can be found on Twitter at JAY_Duke.
And you can find me on Twitter at Zachary AM, and the movement I'm a part of is called Curva Collective.
And how about your Instagram? You could be found somewhere there too, right?
At Curva Collective. And I'm Michael McCall. You can find me on Twitter at AFTN Canada. Read our stuff away from the numbers on AFTN.ca. Most of the Whitecaps beat reporter for MLSsoccer.com and Goal.com, so watch out for my stuff on there. So, lot to look forward to this new year. Hope you had a great festive season and didn't partake too much on Hogmanay there. So what better way to start the year off than with a Whitecaps podcast? And let's just hope we've got lots more exciting stuff to talk about in the season to come. So until next time, thanks for listening. Take care and
On the Caps!
Going to your first match is an experience you never forget. The atmosphere of what's going on around the pitch looks beautiful, and you always look and go, wow, I'd love to play here one day. If you get the bug, it's going to stay with you for life.